Hello, hello. Welcome back to Unfiltered, Unspoken. We are super excited to have you here today. Well, we have a special guest today. Her name is Kate Hudson-Hall. She is a therapist, hyperologist. I might have said that wrong. An NLP practitioner, plus an author and a podcast. Kate is located in the UK, so we are super excited. We are moving global. I'm going to leave Kate and Sid up here, and I will be back shortly. So thank you for tuning in.
How are you, Miss Kate?
I'm good, thank you, Sid. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, ma'am. And we got the same last name, so
Oh,
you're
do
right
we?
here, right?
Oh,
My last name
oh,
is Hall.
is it? I love
Yes,
it.
ma'am. All right. So, what drew you to the good fight? What has went on in your life that has caused you to resonate with the message of the good fight and come on today and be able to tell your life experience?
Oh my gosh, yes. I just think it's fantastic what you're all doing here and chatting with people about their different experiences and their trauma that they've been through. So people know that, they're not alone, that that if they have had a similar experience that, they're not alone and there is help out there. And to be able to hear other people's story, I think it can be quite empowering. And so my experience was that I was sexually abused when I was 9. And then I had a difficult time. I went to boarding school. And then when I was 17, I developed an eating disorder. But then I was also sexually abused for the second time at that age. And then the eating disorder took over. And I had bulimia for 15 years. So I was completely engulfed in this eating disorder, and it ruled my life. I could see no way out, but I also had no idea what I could do to be able to help myself. And that went on for years and years and years. And I put my family through so much because I spent a long time in denial. And so gradually, over time, my mother sort of chipping away and suggesting that I go and get help, I did eventually um, listen to her and allowed her to take me to see the doctor. So I think, what's really important, just briefly, is that if you have a loved one that has an eating disorder and you approach them about it, quite often there can be resistance, but over time, you're every time you approach them about it, you're setting a seed. And hopefully, over time, that seed will begin to grow and they will begin to understand that that you're right and they do need to reach out for help. So I then started to look for a therapist, and I saw a couple of different therapists until I actually found the right therapist for me, which was incredible. She was fantastic. And I spent 4 years with her. And I do believe when I was seeing her, I never had a father. He died when I was 2. So I was brought up by my mother. So she was like a mother and a father wrapped in one. And so when I was seeing this therapist, she got cancer. And then after 2 years, as I was still seeing the therapist, she passed away. And it was the most traumatic experience ever, as you can imagine. And so I do believe if I wasn't seeing that therapist at that time, I wouldn't be here today. That's how much she helped me. So after I sort of worked through and came out the other side from my experience with my eating disorder and my experience with the abuse and working through all of that, because I was abused when I was 9, and then I never actually told anybody or talked to anyone whatsoever until I was in my 30s. I never acknowledged it. It was buried deep within me, which was all sort of like connected, partly connected to why I developed an eating disorder, which is quite a similar pattern for people with eating disorders quite often. Statistics show us that they have been abused. So, um, and then after that, I decided, okay, I want to be able to help people how I've been helped. And I decided to train to become a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and other different therapies. So I sort of like progressed along the way. And now I work with people with anxiety and also with eating disorders. So I have 2 books out. Well, I have 1 book out and 1 book coming out in the next couple of weeks. So the first book is Help for People with Eating Disorders, but particularly with bulimia, which is called Bulimia Sucks, which is on Amazon. And then also my new book, which is being released next week on the 13th of November, is called Anxiety Hacks, with proven techniques, tools, and tips to calmness. So there's a lot of, so because I've been working with people with anxiety for such a long time, I thought the best way to reach out to people on a wider scale is to write a book. So teaching people the different techniques I've found, my clients have found that help them in difficult situations and help them to start to feel calmer and to understand more about their anxiety. So I'm very excited about my book. Yes, which is out, yes, coming out on the 13th of November, which will be on Amazon.
Yes, well, congratulations about that. I do want to, pretty much while I have you here, just make it known to our viewers here, when you say anxiety, that it's not always, nail biting, sweating, things like that. So, as we have someone here of your caliber, your expertise here, what does anxiety look like? What is, how can that materialize, and how can, our viewers recognize it for what it is when it isn't the, quintessential traits that we think anxiety is?
Yeah, I think particularly with COVID, I think that anxiety, well, the statistics show that anxiety has really increased for so many different reasons, even for people just to venture out of their front door. It can cause anxiety for them. But with anxiety, quite often the pattern is that if somebody is in a very stressful situation, is stressed a lot of the time, so has a lot on their plate, and they're up and they're very stressed consistently, because we all have anxiety. We have anxiety if we had to go and make a presentation, or anxiety if we had to go and take a driving test. We could have anxiety then about it, and that's a natural feeling. But it's when somebody is somebody is stressed consistently, our hormone levels will stay up at this height, at this stress level. And normally, if somebody has anxiety and they're in a stressful situation, their levels, their hormonal levels will rise up and then they will dip down again. But if somebody is consistently stressed all the time, which in this day and age is very common, that the hormone levels stay up at this sort of higher level, and so therefore it's keeping you in that frightened state, which normally for people, as I said, we dip up and then dip down again. And then if we're in another sort of stressful situation, we could dip up and dip down. But if people are consistently in this stressful situation, their anxiety is heightened and they stay up at this high level, which then brings up huge anxiety for them.
Yes, I definitely agree. Now, this episode is going to be a lot about perspective because, for one, a lot of people, have not had the luxury to, travel or, even speak to someone from anywhere else outside of the US. So we know here, in America, although there is, a general consensus that, mental health is a thing. It's real. We base a lot on it. However, there's no kind of position in the infrastructure for it to change anything or to us to knock it out at the source. How does the UK, handle mental health? Is the structure, made to help you all from the beginning, or is it the type of thing where you kind of have to scratch, prod, and pull for your own kind of breakthrough like you do in America?
Absolutely. It's the same as it is over there for you. And it's gradually growing, and there is getting, there's more support. But if over here, because our health system is completely different, but if you were to go to see your doctor, you would have to wait. I think the waiting list is like 18 months to get to see a counselor for whatever the problem is. And I think it's the similar over there. It's a long time that you have to wait, isn't it? So it's very similar to how it is with you, but also um, we over here, it's just really powerful that our future king, Prince William, King Charles's son, he's an advocate for mental health, so he is out there talking about it a lot, and his wife Kate, and they're often on TV talking about mental health and and what they've been through. And I think that is huge, and I think that really helps for people over here, particularly to hear that that they have their own struggles as well. And he did an interview on Mental Health Awareness Day last month, and he was talking about having a toolbox, and the learning different tools to have in your toolbox. And well, my book has its own toolbox. So I thought, well, he's obviously connected to me somehow.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that. Because on our side, we kind of get, the highlights of news from the royal family. We don't really see that too often. We kind of see things and it come up in a sense where we think that they're just kind of, trying to save face for media in a way. So I do think that it's amazing that it's, they've come to a level where they don't really feel like untouchable in a way. They kind of can, familiarize with the general public. So I love that, that they're at least moving in that direction. Hopefully they are practicing what they preach, but,
but I think also he's kind of learned from his mother as well, because when I was in the 80s, when I was going through my bulimia, and then his mother, Diana, wrote her book, and she talked about the fact that she had bulimia, which was huge because nobody ever talked about, nobody understood about bulimia, and it wasn't officially diagnosed and given the label until 1979. And so even then, nobody, it took a long time for it to get through the system. So for her to speak out and to have it in her book was huge. People with eating disorders, I think. And so he's kind of, he knows that. I did invite him. I have a podcast as well called Bulimia Sucks. And I have invited him to come on my podcast and talk about how he feels about his mother and her speaking out about her eating disorder. But he's been a bit busy.
I was gonna say, I hope he takes that. I hope he takes that. That would be lovely for you. Yes. Now I do know, when you were kind of explaining a little bit of your life experience, you said, you kind of put your family through hell. Now, a lot of the times when I hear that, it's a level of accountability, but, depending on the person, you always want to, they could be trying to stay respectful, of certain things. So, I mean, do you believe there was a level of hell they put you through, or, that they saw you going through and couldn't help, wouldn't help, didn't know how to help? What part did your family play? Although they did, were kind of integral in helping you get over it. What part did they play in, the materialization of it all?
Yeah, I did. I put them through such a difficult time. And I, because I was in denial, I just didn't know how to deal with it. And because in those days, because it was, it was like as if it was the 1800s, there was hardly any books out there, and I remember I managed to get one book on eating disorders, and it was just academic. It was just all writing, and I couldn't understand any of it. But there was no help out there. And my mother, all she had to base my eating disorder on was Karen Carpenter, who died from anorexia. So um, there wasn't any, there wasn't much help out there. So yes, so I put them through a very difficult time. And there was always people, if we had family gatherings, I'd walk into a room and everybody would stop talking. That would happen consistently. And my brother, when he talks about it now, who was very supportive and tried to help me, I suppose in a way he was traumatized by, what I was going through. And because they were helpless, they didn't know how to help me. And there was no advice or anything out there to be able to give them any guidance about how they should approach it. So in my book, Bulimia Sucks, there is a free downloadable um, a ebook for people, for family and friends, there's helpful advice in there to be able to help you to be able to how to reach out to your loved ones. So, which I think is really important because, we don't know how to do it. And nowadays, the key first step would be to get on the internet or get some books and learn and understand. So when you do approach your loved one, at least you have that information. So at least you have some sort of statistics and background and kind of know which direction you're going in.
Absolutely. And those are helpful tips because although, you think, these are the people I've known for the longest, they know me the most. They are normally the hardest to talk to about things like that. So a lot of people don't have the tools. And that's wonderful that you are, giving those tips because it can save a lot of people. It can get a lot of people, out of darkness and give them the motivation to speak out and get some help. So that is, we appreciate that, for you, for one, having to go through that experience yourself in order to be able to help others. That is very selfless of you. So that's wonderful to know that's going to be in your book. My next kind of question is just based on the psychology, behind eating disorders. We're living in a world where a lot of things are now, especially as far as appearance goes, there's a lot of quick fixes available. So what about the process behind, maybe anorexia or bulimia? What does that do for the void that you're feeling or need to be filled? Where you're just not choosing plastic surgery or liposuction. What is it about the process behind these eating disorders that, mends whatever it is that's broken? How do you get into that? And how did it start? Was it something little or, did you just say, this is what I'm going to do? How did it make you feel good? In comparison to what was going on?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was 17, I remember I was sitting with a friend and we just had dinner, and I was a late developer and my body was, I was changing into a woman. So the shape was changing and I was nowhere near overweight and this friend of mine said to me, so, did you know if you eat a Mars bar and make yourself sick, then you won't put the weight on? And I ran with that. But the most important thing is for people to hear is that the power of suggestion, that suggestion, I just gripped it and ran as fast as I could with it. So it's just really important for people to hear that how they talk to maybe their children or their loved ones. It's really important to be more aware of the power of suggestion. Because it's that was like the key for me to open the door to to run with it, unfortunately. But I think for people with an eating disorder, you gain by having an eating disorder. It's your way of coping with with your feelings and your specific, maybe past experiences. And I know it doesn't make any sense, but by, say, if you had bulimia and binging and purging, you would have a brief moment afterwards of relief. And that's kind of what you sort of direct yourself to strive towards. But with the binging and purging, it helps to help you to feel better in some way. So it's like um, it's a way of you coping with your feelings. And so, say like somebody's an alcoholic, they reach out for alcohol to be able to, say, detach themselves from their feelings, their difficult feelings they're having. So it's the same as that. It's the same as any sort of problem that somebody has. It's their way of them being able to cope with their feelings from maybe past experiences, from a trauma, from sexual abuse, or whatever it might be. So it's starting to, there's so many different areas that have to be addressed with an eating disorder, but one of them is to start to kind of unravel those difficult feelings that you have and identify what the root causes are, work with those and start to open up and talk about them and work with them, and then kind of piece it all back together so it works positively.
Yes, ma'am. Now, from, let's say, a patient standpoint or a consumer standpoint, personally, I believe therapists that have been through things, experience is the best teacher. But, for others, it's like, well, how do I know that you have overcome everything that you've been through enough to tell me, how to get on with my life and get my stuff together? So at what point did you, think that you had come to a point where you were able to educate others, you were healed enough to be able to spread information to help others through their situation without feeling like, maybe a fake, a fraud, an imposter, or that you were even qualified to do that? What point in your healing, or was there like a particular moment where you were like, this is just what I need to do to, fulfill my life? How did you know personally that you had come to that headspace to be able to live and walk in the spirit that you are in now, in regards to you helping others in this situation?
That's a really good question, isn't it? I'll have to think back. Um, I think for me, that drive was, I suppose, over time, I gradually started to feel more confident um, and achieve my goal of making it all the way down the end of the recovery path positively. And, I'm not saying there wasn't ups and downs. And obviously, when my mother died, I was doing very well. And then when my mother died, then I dipped back down into the bulimia and then gradually pulled myself out again. But it was that dire need to be able to help others how I'd been helped. And, I think because I was in such a bad place, and then to be able to get to a much better place, it wasn't until I actually could, yeah, it was a thought and a feeling really that a confirmation that I could be able to live my life without the bulimia and the eating disorder. That was kind of the confirmation that, right, okay, I'm ready now. But it took a number of years for me to move forward, because it's, recovery, that recovery path is slow and you've got to take it day by day.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm.
Now, in the process, of overcoming everything that you've been through, how has I personally believe, sorry to back it up a little bit, I personally believe a lot of people do not enter the healing space, or they are anxious to meet the healing, just because they don't know what's to come. They don't really know a life without
Yeah. And
chaos,
it's
trauma,
scary.
turmoil. Yes. So, what have things looked for you, that are normal, but with somebody that has, gone through trauma, could be, like climbing mountains. So how have your relationships look like? How have your relationships with, either platonic or relationship with family? How has just getting on with normal life and having the normal wants and pleasures, that humans want, how has that been for you? How has romantic relationships worked out? Have they not? Are there still things that you're working on to achieve that? Is that even something that you want? How has just getting on with normal life, how does that look for you? And how can you, I guess, provide motivation to someone who is just scared of what's to come, but wants to get out?
Yeah. Yeah. Well. So my life now, I can actually say that I'm happy, and I have been happy for a long time, and that's what we all strive for. And I think that's powerful, because we all strive to be happy in our lives. And I'm not saying I don't have, difficulties, ups and downs, and things happen, but yeah, I am happy. And my relationships, well, I ended up getting married, and then I have 3 children. So that was, a miracle that I could actually do that after all I put my body through. And so I think it's really important for people to hear, because I was in such a difficult, dark place that I didn't believe that I could get out of that recovery path. But it's important, if people, whatever the situation is, it's finding that right therapist and having that therapist guide you very gradually through these difficult experiences that you're having. And you too can be happy again in your life.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It is, as long as you got breath in your life, in your body, you can make any change for sure. Demetria, did you want to hop in? I see you hop back in on us.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love this. Kate, thank you for bringing all the informative information to folks. This is wonderful. I have a few questions, but I'm going to ask this one question in particular. The friend that referred you the Mars bar,
Yeah.
was she bulimic as well?
No, she wasn't. No, she never did become. No.
Okay, because it's interesting that she would make that comment and where it would come from.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't know where that actually came from, or what made her say that to me.
Okay.
But, yeah, she wasn't a bulimic. No.
Okay. All right. So really quick, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come right on back. Sid, woo, those questions were phenomenal. Kate, yeah. Deep. I love it. Give us 1 second. We'll be right back.
If I died today, would I be proud of the life I lived? Death. It's the one thing that puts everything else into perspective.
Will eventually have a problem that life insurance can help solve. As life insurance agents, we are and will always be a necessity in America, guys. People just think about funerals, they think about the funeral expense, but they don't think about the residual effects that deaths have on us. And if you've never dealt with a death firsthand or close to you, you wouldn't understand. A lot of people in America, they don't understand. That's why they don't feel life insurance is a necessity, and we're here to change that. It also safeguards your family against debt. Everything that's going on in America, bills, high interest rates, gas, inflation. What we do is a necessity. Life insurance is a necessity to help with these things. You never know the effect that it's going to have down the line, guys. If you have family members that are not covered, get them covered, because it's going to affect you one way or another. Right? So you just have to know you have a license, put it to use, and you are a necessity here in America. Thank you
All right, all right. We are back. We are back. I'm going to kick it off with another question, and me and Sid will rotate on questions. If you don't feel comfortable with answering this, Kate, it's okay.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, it's a 2-question in one. Was it a close family member or a close family member that molested you when you were 8? And did anyone, I know there had to be some changes. Did anyone notice the changes after the molestation?
Yeah, I think they're good questions. So the person that sexually abused me, it was myself. So I was 9, and my friend who lived next door, she was 18 months younger than me, and it was her brother. So the family, he was obviously babysitting for us. So my friend and I, we were in her bedroom playing with our little dolls. And then I remember him coming in and saying, "Oh, do you want to come and listen to some music in my room?" And we were like, "Oh gosh," normally he's really horrible to us. And so we, totted in after him. And then he instructed us to take it in turns for us to perform on him while he molested us, and one had to sit and watch. And and then after that, he obviously said, "Don't tell anyone." And then we went back to her bedroom and carried on playing with our dolls. So we didn't talk about it. And it happened 3 times. And this friend of mine, I never spoke to her about it. We never spoke about it until I was going through my therapy in my 30s. And I said to her, "Do you remember what Jeff did to us, what he had us do?" And I've never seen anybody look so shocked in all their life that I was bringing up this subject. So she's obviously never worked through it, and she was completely detached from that experience. But he went on to have 4 children, 3 girls. And the one thing that she said to me was, "I remember how he used to look at his oldest daughter. He used to look at his oldest daughter with those same eyes that he used to look at me at," which broke my heart.
So so he was molesting his sister as well. So that means that she probably was going through that. We're not going to touch on that too much because she's not here to defend herself. But wow, that is. Whew.
And he has obviously, well, I don't know, but I don't think he's kind of moved on. I know that a couple of years ago, because I'm still friends with her, she told me that he had been online grooming young girls, and the police had been around. And I was just like, I don't know. I should have spoken out, but I didn't have the courage.
Did you ever confront him? Were you able to confront him?
No, I've never confronted him, but because I don't really see him. I've seen him at their parents' funerals and christenings and things, but I held my head high, and he looked very sheepish. That was good enough for me.
Good.
But, should I have done? The question is, should I have taken that further to protect his children? Well, I was a bit young then, but to protect, what he's up to now with the grooming of these young girls.
Wow.
It's amazing in a bad way, just how it continues itself. And like, I wonder if something happened to him, but it's just like, it's like old habits don't die hard, like, at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Ugh. It's heartbreaking what I'm sure what happened to his, I don't know, but with his children, his girls, I don't know, but
Yeah, and that's the sad part. It's like they're blessed with girls, what makes it even worse. And then, for a lot of us that have went through sexual traumas, we want to protect, but it's like, how do we protect? And this is a part of it. Unfiltered, Unspoken, and the Good Fight is giving out the message to try to protect and to bring awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the time when I was sexually abused when I was 17, I blame myself because it was was taken to I went to a party with a couple of friends, and one of the chaps I was really keen on, and I remember that on the way I never drank alcohol, and on the way they bought a bottle of whiskey, which I still can't drink to this day. And so we were drinking whiskey from the bottle, and then we were in the kitchen of this house, and then the next thing I remember is waking up and there's 3 boys kind of gang raping me. And then I passed out again, and then I woke up another time, and then eventually managed to get myself out of there at 5 o'clock in the morning and walk home. But I remember and I always blame myself and never said or did anything, was because I thought, well, it was my fault because I was drinking. I just got so drunk that they
Like it was a L you just kind of had to take, but for anybody watching, everybody is in control of themselves, and consent is vital. So if you are not in a position to agree to anything, it shouldn't happen.
absolutely.
And just understand that. In regards to your eating disorder, well, not even just everything, you went through some things that in realistically are not avoidable, as far as things that come over. So granted, men aren't necessary, but we, you know what I mean, for things that we want to do, they may be, or feelings we might have, they may be. Food is necessary. So with you having that turmoil between those two subjects, with things that you really can't get away from, how have you learned to, live in harmony with them?
I think that's a good question. Well, with regards to the sexual abuse, therapy was the key to talk about that, and work through all of the difficult feelings that came up and would come up from these two experiences. But the problem with an eating disorder is, if you're an alcoholic, you can just completely stop drinking eventually when you've got in that right mindset. With the help, you can stop. But with an eating disorder, I remember my clients say to me, if only I could just not eat, it would be so much easier. And then I wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is, you've got to gradually, and that's why it's such a long, slow process, that recovery path is to gradually learn how to eat again. Because when I had my eating disorder, I couldn't even eat an apple without it sending me down into a binge. I couldn't eat. And so that's why it's got to be such a gradual process, and slowly start to begin to introduce food into your body.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Demetria, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I had a question. So 17 is when the bulimia started. 17 was when you were gang. I call it gang rape.
Yeah.
Did your family notice, like, after the rape, any significant changes? Because I know there had to be changes after the rape. And if not, can you give our audience like some advice, like what to look for if your child changes, so that parents can have more awareness on the change of their child, to help them to know, hey, something happened traumatic to my child. These are things that I need to look out for.
Yeah. I think, I think for me, I never heard of anybody recognizing the fact, because I was, learning to be a very good actress. And I never heard of anybody recognizing the fact that I had been through these traumatic events. So I don't think anybody knew. But I think if you feel that your child maybe is going through or has experienced some sort of abuse like that, I think the very first thing that you need to do is to find the right time to talk to that young person. And then I think what would be a good idea is for you to remember that it's important that you've got to ask them how they're feeling, and start to open up about, maybe their behavior at that particular point, that day, or, how they're behaving. And then slowly over time, get them to understand, and you can give examples about talking about your feelings, and then they can learn from you, and it's starting to have them to tune into those feelings and start to open up, and then gradually you can approach the difficult subject. But and also again, go online and find out further information about how to approach your loved one. But it's, or you could, just advise, how would you, I think you've had a very difficult time, and how would you feel about, us going and speaking to a doctor about it? Maybe you don't feel that confident to speak to your loved one. So maybe you could, or going to speak to a therapist about it, you going along for that first half of that first session, or whatever it may happen. But to try and tune in to how they're feeling, and start for them to understand and recognize their own feelings, and then gradually build from there.
What I guess what implementations, now granted I don't know, the gender of your children, but I'm sure, in either regard, there are things that you've learned that you are, passing on to your kids, to whether to be, just kind of more alert as a woman, or, more empathetic in things with sons. So, what have what are your, I guess, kind of pillars and, things like that you are teaching, your kids, or what are the things that you have learned, that you should instill in your children, to prevent them from becoming the type of person, that have, displayed hate and hurts and things like that upon yourself. How are how has that made you as a parent? And what is that, how is that helping with the knowledge that you are passing on to your children, or anybody that you come into interaction with that needs help in this regard, or should just be guided with the way of the world?
Yeah. I think for me, I've got 3 sons, and I do believe I didn't have a daughter because I didn't know how I would cope with a daughter at that time, if she were with her eating patterns. And I do believe that is why I had 3 sons, but that's beside the point there. And I think, with children, it's important that you show a good example, and you talk about your feelings, and you talk about your values and how important those values are to you, and have them open up and express their feelings, and have them, really sit down and hear what you're saying about, about your beliefs of, um, anything, your solid beliefs about what you think, is, positive in the world, what's not positive, and speak clearly to them, and tell them, that, as I'm sure that many of people do, but give them guidance and say that, if you do this, this is what is going to happen here. But let's focus on how you can really, um, be empathetic, and in the same time to nurture and guide yourself forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. So I have a question. So being a mom, knowing that feeling, and your mom, just letting her know you shield a lot from her. Um, do you have you when you were going through the bleeding, did you tell your mom like did your mom ever know about the molestation at 9 and the rape at 17? Have you ever said, Mom, this is what happened to me, these are the reasons why I became bulimic, I blame myself, I felt as though I was at fault?
I would have done, but she died.
Sorry to hear
But then,
that.
no, it's fine. But I have thought about that, and I know that I would have opened up to her soon after I'd come out the other side of having the therapy. But unfortunately, she'd passed away. Um, but another reason, because there was multiple reasons why I had an eating disorder. Another reason was because I had separation anxiety from the age of 5 with her. And that sort of grew and grew. And then when I was 11, I was sent to boarding school. And so I would cry every night because I missed her so much for like 3 weeks. And then I'd have a week of like relief, and then I'd see her again for a day. And then, and so at the time we didn't know it was separation anxiety, but that's what it was. And if I'd have had some help back then, I could have had some, understood it and, been able to deal with it. Because I remember when I was 8 and I was sent every day, obviously off to school, and I found some tablets in the cupboard, and I took these tablets thinking, this will do it. And I can have some time off so I can look after my mother. And I know I did it at least twice until I told my little friend, and then she told her mother. And so it was, it was really severe. I suppose I could have really injured myself, killed myself, because it wasn't addressed. And so I would have told her about the abuse for sure. Yeah.
And it was good that you told a friend that told their mom to, like, I guess that was like it helped. Did the friend's mom say anything?
Oh yeah, she went to my mother, and then my
Okay.
mother reprimanded me, and not much came of it. I don't remember. But I did, obviously over the years, I've got 2 older brothers, and I have told them about the abuse because obviously they knew the neighbor. And I found the courage eventually to tell them, and they were very shocked. They had no idea.
Do they know the guy? Do they know the guy that?
They were friends with him because he lived next door, so they were friends. So that was quite a shock for them, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Do you feel as though boarding school traumatized you more? It was like a punishment.
Yes. Yeah. I had a very difficult time there because I missed my mother so much. And I would misbehave because I missed her so much. Not hugely, but I didn't enjoy it there, and I never did very well in school. Partly because of that, and partly because I didn't believe I was very clever.
But now you see that you are very clever. So
that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book. But I had a limiting negative belief that I was stupid. And that all stemmed from when my older brother would tell me I was stupid from the age of 5 or 6. And then things happened at school where I had to be taken out for extra spelling or something. And I had to stand up in front of the class with a few other people and be taken out. And that's kind of reinforcing the fact that this belief that I was stupid. And then by the time I went, went to secondary school, then I was in the bottom level of everything. And even though I really would try hard when I got to like 14, 15, I never did very well. But it's because I was of my way of thinking that I was stupid. And so when I left school, I never went to college or anything. I just bumbled my way along because I didn't believe I could achieve anything. And then it wasn't until I actually did my psychotherapy course that I learned about that we all have these limiting, not everybody, but majority of people have these limiting beliefs, these negative way of thinking about themselves. And they need to be addressed, because there's so many different types. You could feel unloved, unlovable, you have to be in control of everything. There's a long list of different limiting beliefs that people have about themselves, and they need to be addressed.
Yes. Now, to me, I understand, in my mind, I understand that there's like a process to, the absolute worst part of what you are going through. So what I assume could have started small, just in regards to what you were doing with the bulimia. I just want to know if there's any, what the spectrum is like, so that if people are taking those actions now, they know what type of path they're on. For instance, somebody who does like this when they're nervous can turn on the full on picking their hair out. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
how did the build happen? What are the little things that you were doing at first that you thought were kind of careless, you could get around them, where before it turned into full on a disorder?
Yeah. Well, with the bulimia, it started with me experimenting and eating food and then making myself sick. And then it would be at meal times I would go make myself sick afterwards. And then gradually, it develops. And it's like a snowball effect. And then it's as if, you're an addict in a way, and you've got to have that fix. And so then you will, not just after you've eaten a meal, you will specifically go out to the shops and buy the food and spend a fortune on the amount of food that you buy in order for you to be able to binge on all that food and then throw it up. So it is like a snowball effect. And then, so many people, they can end up binging and purging, 15 times a day, which is just horrific.
And I can only imagine the ass. I guess it's the ass coming out from the. It's destroying. Isn't that causing some kind of effect?
There's so many different problems, but your whole body, gradually, the more that you do it, your organs start to shut down. Your heart, it can kill you because you're overstrenuous on your heart, and it affects your teeth, and it affects your lungs and your everything. It's obviously your stomach and the acid, and very, very dangerous.
So I actually had a friend that will make herself vomit, and I actually tried it 2 or 3 times when I was younger. But the reason I didn't, because it like the coat on my stomach, it didn't feel right to me. So it didn't become a pattern for me. But I did have a friend, and a part of her reason was the weight, people making fun of her because of the weight, which became an addiction, the bulimia. For you, I know yours streamed from some of the traumas that you went through, but also, did you look in the mirror and say, I want to be skinny? That's why that became a pattern for you, a habit, an addiction.
Absolutely. That was kind of interwoven with the bulimia, about my own self-image, and how I looked. What was the other question that you asked me? I was going to say something about that.
I'm sorry.
I can't remember what it was now.
I was saying, with all the traumas that you went through, I know that probably played a part, but a lot of folks was it the weight? You weren't comfortable with your weight, or how you appeared. But also, I mean, since we're on that, did you ever look in the mirror and say, after you got so small from the bulimia, because I'm pretty for sure it probably was like tiny, did you say, I look sick, I don't look healthy, I don't look well?
No. I thought, I wasn't thin enough. And the thing is that people that have severe bulimia are making themselves binge and purge so much. Some of the people, they will get a really bloated moon face, they call it, but then they'll be very slim. But what's important to understand here is that a lot of people that have bulimia maybe are on the heavier side. And so it's difficult and it's more tricky to recognize that they have this disorder. And people that are on the heavier side that have bulimia, for I hear this quite a lot. They will go to reach out for help and they will not be believed that they have an eating disorder because of their weight, which is horrific.
Yeah, that's sad.
That is. Is it, do you also believe, again, because, you know, we are in a world where weight can be fixed very, very quickly. You don't have to, you know, go through that amount of stress in your body to lose weight. Do you also think in a way, you know, as people that were abused in that manner that you were you also, in a sense, making yourself repulsive so that, you know, people would leave you alone in that sense, or they would feel like they, you know, you're not the person for them to try that with? Like, granted, you know, you were making yourself look good, you know, to yourself, but you know, you understand the manner is a little, you know, it's not normal. So are you, you know, making yourself repulsive to others, you know, so that they don't feel like they can just come take advantage of you like that? Does that type of mentality take place?
Yeah, no, I know where you're coming from. For me, no, that wasn't the case, but I know for many people, for a lot of people that maybe are on the heavier side and that they struggle with their weight, that can be an issue for them. And that's part, you know, kind of unconsciously that they're not aware of that the fact that they reach out for food even though they're not hungry, because they are, trying to make themselves unattractive to, you know, to men or a man or a woman. And but a lot of people aren't aware that that's the pattern that they've got themselves into.
Do you?
No,
Sorry,
go ahead.
Sid. Sorry, Boo.
I'm
Sorry.
just amazed by it. I never get to, you know, get that deep into asking the questions. So I'm just.
Yeah, this
No,
is good. Do you find, being a therapist, do you find that a lot of folks that are bulimic are bullied, teased about their weight? Because I can only imagine how that may play a part if I'm trying to go to the gym and lose weight, but I'm not having success in losing that weight. So my last result is to start regurgitating my food. Do you find that common?
I think that is quite common for people to, because, you know, like I was saying just earlier, that, you know, it's the power of suggestion. It only has to be one, you know, for a girl, one person at school to make a comment about their weight, that, you know, that part of their mind can run with it. And then they lead them down all sorts of negative paths. So absolutely.
Yes, I just find it amazing that I guess, you know, certain things that are said and certain things that we, you know, consume, whether that's, you know, visually, emotionally, any of that, just how it sets in on different people. Because, you know, where one person could have, you know, said something, you laugh it off like whatever, but the other person really takes it as a personal attack. It makes it, you know, their whole kind of origin story. So I do want people just to recognize certain things, because even now, just listening to you, you know, I realize that I've done a couple things that, like, you know, probably if I did them consistently or really came to terms with how they helped with whatever situation, I probably could have, you know, very well been bulimic. Like, you know, when you wake up and you admire yourself, when you haven't eaten anything, you haven't drinking anything, how you look, and you just like, I might be able to, you know, just make this event, this brunch event without eating because I look good in my clothes right now. Just certain little things, you know, that some people you know, it could work one or two times, but other people, when they see that it work, it takes off. So I just think the kind of psychology behind that is, you know, it's amazing just as the human body works, but it's kind of detrimental to us. Just based off of certain things that we've been through, how we are going to interpret certain things and take it and run with it. So just, you know, people watching, just understand that it can be you. You probably have done some things as, you know, stop looking your nose down at people or feeling like you could never get in that situation, because you probably have done something along the lines that can lead you right down that path. So just, just be kind of open-minded about things like that and not put past judgment on people, because you probably have a lot more in common with someone. I never felt like you could be bulimic. I never really understood, the psychology of it, but just listening to you, I now understand that I probably have done some things that could have led me right down that road.
Yeah.
So just, don't feel like it can never be you. Don't feel like you just have no familiarity with nothing you hear in that regard, because it can definitely be you.
Mm-hmm. So, what time? I have one more question, and it said has another question we can answer. But I just want to know, what advice can you give to folks that to not to stray away from being bulimic, or if they are bulimic, what advice can you give them to say, hey, this is how you can stop or heal or recognize that you are bulimic, and there are other ways. This is unhealthy. You shouldn't traumatize your body in this form. Like, what advice can you give so people stay away?
Oh yes, I wish I had a magic a magic key. I think it all comes down to being more aware about how you feel with yourself. And I think if you have an eating disorder, you have an eating disorder. There's no question there. Really, if it's bulimia, or or if you're restricting your food, let's take a step aside and have a look at the patterns here. Maybe find somebody, it could be a loved one, a family member, or a friend, and start to open up to them about, you think maybe that you may have an eating disorder, and start to talk about how you're feeling, because it's all about your feelings, and tuning into those feelings, and going to see your doctor, or getting a therapist. And even if you maybe think that you have an eating disorder but you're not sure, I would, go and see your doctor, and explain where you are, and take it from there. Or find a therapist. Absolutely. And start to open up with the therapist about how you're feeling about whatever it may be.
Yes. And I got a quick, just personal question. I have these things. Now, I find myself, even though I've never technically been through an eating disorder or anything like that, I really find myself appreciating and really sitting watching for hours, like those mukbang videos and things like that. Do those videos actually help people? If you know what I mean, like the people that sit there and eat like excessive amounts of food, and things like that. And I've heard that does help people with eating disorders, because it kind of fulfills that, I guess, want to binge that way, but when they can't do it themselves. Do you really think those videos are, for one, helpful, or they could be helpful, or they just kind of detrimental to the cause?
I think they're detrimental to the cause. I think that, for some people, it might be teaching them how to behave in such a way. I can't really see anything too positive from them. But I just wanted to say as well that if people are with my eating disorders clients, but also over the years, I've been teaching this for years, the intuitive eating. And for people that don't know what that is, it's starting to be more aware about what you're eating. It's starting to learn how you can eat only when you're hungry, but it's having the tools to be able to do that, and eating slowly and consciously, and actually tasting the food, because quite often we don't even taste the food. And then tuning into that feeling of being moderately full, because everybody knows the feeling of being full, but most people don't know but right before you have that feeling of being full, there's a feeling of being, I call it moderately full. Some people, there's lots of different ways to explain it, but it's not such a strong feeling. It's like a slight flutter of a feeling. Some people, it's a knowing they have. Some people, the food stops tasting so good. Some people, very first sign is they can feel their tummy extended, or the belt around their tummy, or whatever it might be. And stopping eating, but learning how to stop eating. And that's all very well because people have been brought up, they've got to finish everything on their plates. But it's starting to address that and open up and looking at your eating patterns. And, you know, if you are eating when you're not hungry, ask yourself that cookie question. I know I'm not hungry for this food. So what feelings am I trying to change? I could go on and on.
Absolutely. Now, this last one is just what I like to do at the end. You know, shameless plug yourself. I know that you said you have your book releasing on Amazon on the 13th. But here's where, you know, you can let the viewers know about all your endeavors, what you have coming up, your social media handles, how they can get in touch with you. Shameless plug yourself.
Oh, my shameless plug. So my my first book is called Bulimia Sucks, and it's 25% of it is my memoir. And so if you wanted to learn more about my story, and then the rest of it is self-help, different ways and techniques that you can help to be able to begin to break your pattern. And then I also have a podcast of the same name, Bulimia Sucks. So if you just go to any of the podcast channels, it's on there. And I was just saying earlier, we've just had over 30,000 downloads. So that's very exciting. Yay! And then also my new book, which is coming out next week. Oh, here it is, called Anxiety Hacks, which I am very excited about. So that has got like really many different ways to be able to help you to be able to calm yourself. And also there's a companion course that you get with the book. And it's me showing you different videos of how to do each of the techniques. And there's downloadable tables in the course as well. And that all comes with it. And my website is Kate Hudson-Hall, HALL.com. And my handles on all of the social media is my name, Kate Hudson-Hall. So thank you.
Made it easy for us. Thank you. Thank you. Make it easy for the people to find you.
Yes. Kate, thank you. This was
Thank you.
Awesome, informative information. Folks, definitely, please. It's rolling across the bottom of the screen, Kate's information. So if you're going through bulimia, you don't know where to go, what to do, where to start, Kate Hudson-Hall is definitely a resource. And just because she's in UK does not mean that you cannot reach out to her. She is very responsive.
Absolutely. Just email me.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to close it out. Sorry. Thank everyone for tuning in to Unfiltered Unspoken. We are definitely a life of abuse and eating disorder and becoming a therapist. Kate is a publishing author as well. Please support her. Go out and she's on Amazon. She has 4 books out, I believe, correct? 3, 1 releasing. So please definitely support Kate. And again, thank you for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken, where we are going to share life experiences so that we can help others going through similar situations. So whatever you can take from this, if it's going to help you, then our mission is being served.